Good morning, everybody out there. It is 9 a.m. on Wednesday, June 3rd, and you are watching Get Funded, Money for Something's twice a month, 1 hour free webinar on crowdfunding tips, tactics, tools, and resources to have you have a successful crowdfunding campaign, which is all we're really interested in you having. So today, let me just kind of go over what the schedule is going to look like today, and then I'm going to jump into some crowdfunding news that I have found particularly interesting. So today, I'm going to start with that news, just a couple of little tidbits for you to check out. And then we're going to have our guests join us. Our two guests today are Kristin Zabawa, an amazing photographer who specializes in animal photography. And she has just launched, well, not just, she's at the tail end of her new crowdfunding campaign, Soul Sessions, which is just this incredible service that she provides families with animals who are transitioning. And her husband, Randy Sellars, who is a filmmaker, director of photography, an amazing business person, and he's developing an online course for people who want to break into the film industry and create beautiful videos and movies and things like that. So Randy's going to talk to us today, giving us some tips, and I will be guiding him to share some tips about what makes powerful campaign videos. And we will look at that probably from both a content and a technical perspective. So the two of them, between the two of them, is going to be an amazing, informative interview for you folks out there. And then finally, we'll take a little break, about a 5-minute break. And then when I come back, I'm going to show you some of the planning tools that we use in our Money for Something programs. Some of these are free. You can download at any moment. And then I've got a brand new kick-ass crowdfunding launch kit for $5. $5. You get all of the tools that we've developed so far in our courses. And then you also get a private membership into the Money for Something Fiverr group. And there we'll beta test new products with you. Again, there's no charge. And then you'll be on kind of the bleeding edge of what we're up to in what we're offering the world around crowdfunding success. So with that, some of the news I want to share, and I'm going to head over to my Facebook page because that's where I tend to post quite a bit of stuff. You can find me on Facebook at Facebook.com/Adrienne Ann, and also /money for something. And the 4 is a numeral 4, money for something. So you'll find crowdfunding news on there. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn and I share bunches of news there too. So let me find my page here. Ooh. I have so many pages, I get confused sometimes. And from experience, I often ask people to not do what I do and not have too many Facebook pages. Okay. So the very first thing, I'm going to switch over to my screen. So this is the Money for Something page on Facebook. And again, it's Facebook.com/money for something. And today's news that I thought was really interesting. So there's the federal law called the federal law for allowing just anybody in the United States to invest in businesses through crowdfunding websites like Fundable. It has taken forever. So the president signed it into law in January, but to be quite honest, it just hasn't come to fruition yet. There's so many details. So what's happening is the states are actually enacting their own crowdfunding laws and allowing everyday investors, not even investors, just everyday people to invest in these projects in their state. And Oregon, of course, is one of those states that's at the forefront of doing so. So there is this article in the New York Times. So again, go to my Money for Something page on Facebook, and you'll find the link right here, not too far from the top of the page. And it's so exciting that the states are, which often happens, are at the forefront of the indie entrepreneur business growth. It's just very, very exciting. So Oregon is one of those states, and I will find the URL later and post that toward the end of today's broadcast. So you can check out what Oregon is doing, and then maybe you can find out what's going on in your state and share any links to crowdfunding, state-based crowdfunding in your area. We reach people all over the world. So if you're in another country and you have something similar, again, this is in relation to the Jobs Act in the states, and being able to invest in businesses as a small investor. You don't have to be accredited. You don't have to prove that you have a certain amount of income. You just need to be able to cover the pledge that you make toward these projects. It's mind-blowing, and it's wonderfully freeing for those of us who are bootstrappers out here in the world with really great ideas, very passionate about what we do. Now we have an opportunity to create business with loans and investments from our communities, our local communities, the mom and pops and the friends across the street. That's very exciting. So there's that little bit. All right. And then, as I promised, later in the broadcast, I will find that URL that goes directly to the Oregon version of this. And hopefully some of you out there will find it in your state and post that on the video commentary as well. All right. So with that, let's see, we've got some interesting things coming up. First, I would like to welcome Kristin Zabawa and Randy Sellars to our broadcast. I'm going to put you guys up on screen and unmute you, hopefully. Maybe. Randy, could you see if you can unmute you on your side?
And it's thinking.
Oh, I can hear you. There we go.
Okay, you're up.
Hello, Kristin and Randy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello.
How are you this morning?
Thanks for having us. Exciting.
Oh, it's all because of you guys that I started doing this. So, and Randy's going to talk a little bit about that, but we're not going to hang in that space for too long. But we're definitely going to cover, you know, what started the whole thing going. So, Kristin, why don't we start with you, and would you introduce yourself and then also share with people your current campaign?
Well, I'm Kristin, and I always kind of, in relation to my Indiegogo campaign and the work I'm doing now, I'm a photographer. I am a former zookeeper of many years, and that sort of started my personal journey with the kind of work that I'm doing now as a photographer, which is what I call soul sessions. And soul sessions is photography, free photography for people whose animals are either extremely elderly or getting close to the end of their lives. And I believe deeply that everyone should be able to have this type of opportunity and to help them to, in some ways, deal with that impending loss of their animal kin. And people have shared with me that the photography session during that time, it allows them to just be with their animal. And I've learned a tremendous amount, and it really has crystallized my personal vision of what I want to do for the rest of my life with that particular talent. And so I decided to start an Indiegogo campaign. First of all, so that I could update my camera equipment, because I never use flash because I think it's intrusive. And I wanted to update my equipment so that I can continue to really offer high quality photographic images with no flash and very little artificial lighting besides lamps. And so I have met my goal, for getting the equipment. And beyond that, I have wanted to, my second goal is to create a nonprofit, because I would like to do this full time for people. I have asked for, I haven't asked for donations, but I've appreciated them. And it's been really humbling to know that 99% of people that I have photographed with their animals have offered a donation, whatever they can afford. It's been really an amazing community. So so that's what's going on. I've got 5 days left to my campaign. It's been quite a wild and wonderful ride. Sort of like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in some ways. But I've learned a lot. I've learned a tremendous amount. And also what I've learned from your wisdom also really created a foundation for me, to really jump this campaign off. And it was extremely helpful in many ways.
Awesome. I'm going to share your page now. Okay, so this is your Soul Sessions page. Let's see if we can get the video to work. So hold tight for just a moment. Let me know if you can hear it on your side.
Okay.
Nope,
No, unfortunately not.
Okay, so look at these cute pictures though.
Trampy.
This is so adorable. So, folks, you're going to have to go directly to her campaign. Oh, bummer, to hear the beautiful background music and really get the whole feeling of what Kristin does. It's just absolutely extraordinary. We also have a site, so I need to put that up a little later as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. So you were looking at 3,500. You're at 4,270. Let's talk about what your next level really looks like for you. So you were talking about a nonprofit. What is it that you need in terms of resources to establish your nonprofit? So resources is obviously people as well as funds, etc.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had to, as these things go and experiences happen, and a certain path that you think is very rigidly planned in front of you, that things happen and affect that. And I have come to the decision that for me personally, creating my own individual nonprofit at this point in time is going to be prohibitively expensive, because I need to hire attorney, accountant, that kind of thing. And so I'm actively looking for a fiscal sponsor. And so it's still very much under the nonprofit umbrella. But I am beginning to contact, reputable animal-related nonprofit organizations who would be my fiscal sponsor. And so essentially what that means is that since they're already established, they have everything in place regarding IRS, the laws and bylaws have already been processed through their own nonprofit. And so they get a certain percentage of any kind of donations that Soul Sessions would receive in payment, I guess, for lack of a better word, for their sponsorship. And so that's a really wonderful option for a lot of people who are interested in creating nonprofit, and yet because of certain unique circumstances, they decide that an individual creation would not necessarily be the most practical for them. And so it doesn't mean it's an easy process finding a fiscal sponsor, but I think that it's a wonderful option for people, and certainly for me at this point. So I have found a wonderful nonprofit attorney, and additional funds are of course going to help me to pay for those people and their expertise and being able to make this process pretty nice and streamlined for me.
So how much more would really help you in that arena? Are you looking to double your campaign goal to 7,000, or what's going to work for you?
I would, not quite double, but from the research that I've done up to this point, I think that another 3,000 would help tremendously. With that, I can hire people who can really work with the IRS documentation, make sure that all the ducks are in a row legally. I can hire a nonprofit attorney who can get me started to protect myself and my relationship within the fiscal sponsorship. There are reputable people and organizations who are in place to help with that. And so with the research I've done on the cost so far, I think that an additional 3,000 above my initial goal, equipment goal, would really basically take care of it.
Awesome. So you're about $700 on your way to that. So that's great on your campaign page. That's fabulous. So folks,
and you never know what can happen in 5 days.
That's true. You don't know what can happen in 5 days. So I'm going to put the URL up right now. Oops. To your page. Takes just a moment. Let me see. So for you, Kristin and Randy, on the left-hand side of your screen, there's yellow tags. That's called the showcase. So you'll see there a link to Soul Sessions, the Indiegogo campaign. So for the rest of the folks out there watching either live or the taped version of this, that URL will be available in the stream below the video. So you'll see a direct link to Kristin's amazing, beautiful campaign. Please support her.
Thank you.
Let's get her that $3,000. So Kristin, Randy, I'm not ignoring you. We're going to get to you soon.
No worries.
But Kristin, this is your second campaign that you've successfully funded. So give our folks an idea of what the first campaign was like, what your progression has been. Was it simpler this time? All of those facts. And you used Kickstarter for your first campaign.
Right, that's right, and it was really a wonderful experience. It was to raise money for my horse photography. I was doing fine art and still continue to do fine art, horse and equine photography. And I wanted to raise money to do a show at Sundance because I had sent some work to them online, and they responded positively, and they have a beautiful gallery at Sundance in Utah, Robert Redford's Sundance resort. And so they invited me to do a show, and so that was to raise money because it really, as most of us know, is really expensive to create a gallery showing with the framing and the high-end printing and all that kind of thing. And so that was my campaign to help me to raise funds so that I can do this wonderful show. And I and I made my goal and exceeded it a little bit. And it was really a great experience, because it was my first direct experience with just the global aspect of crowdfunding, and that I was hearing from people all over the world. And I found that most of my donations were from people who I didn't know, and they didn't know me personally until they got on my Indiegogo or my Kickstarter page. And so it was a great experience with that. It was a simplistic version, although the video was absolutely beautiful. And I think that, and there it is. And I think that it was, really had its level of sophistication from things that I had already learned. But I think that compared to this current Indiegogo campaign, it was pretty streamlined. Is that your memory of it too?
Yeah.
That it was pretty streamlined, not many detours, not too many surprises. I think the main thing I learned about the Indiegogo campaign is be ready for surprises and be ready for things to happen from life. And so protect yourself as much as you can, whether that's protecting your computer information on a separate hard drive, that kind of thing. Just sort of, be expecting that life could throw you a few curves along the way, and make sure that your information is protected. So that I think that's kind of, and that's one small example of the differences. It was very interesting and surprising in many ways.
So did that previous experience make it easy to do the Indiegogo campaign?
It made it easier for sure. I think the video, we knew between the first video and the current video, although both were really beautifully done, it was a little easier for us to be able to figure out what needed to be edited in the second video, what needed to be included. Absolutely. The video, as an example, the general wisdom of crowdfunding, from what I've heard, and also I believe from you, Adrienne, is that not having a really long video is usually advised. My video is longer. It ended up being a little over 4 minutes, which, by a lot of opinions is kind of long, but over the editing, and this is where our first Kickstarter experience came in, we really needed to figure out what the story was and crystallize that story. We needed to prioritize absolutely what had to be in there to convey the story to people so that they could connect, because that's what it's really all about, is connection and identification in some way. And so after a lot of agonizing and a lot of time and effort, we really couldn't go any less than about 4 minutes. And I think that ended up being okay in this case, because in some ways I was lucky in that the story is, it is a pretty compelling story, and a lot of people have shared that with me, and the response has been to that video has been tremendous. And Veronica Rose created the video, by the way, edited it. And she did a beautiful job. And so, so that really was a really main part of the learning curve between Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Now, with this second campaign with Indiegogo, you got global news coverage. Would you share a little bit about that, and how did you make that happen?
I think that, it's one of those things where luck can really come into it a great deal. We can't know what happens behind the global closed doors, so to speak, how others just find out, but what essentially happened was that a news agency in the United Kingdom, a photographer for that news agency, saw my Indiegogo campaign. And I think that how that happened was that at that time I was, and I still am, on the front page of the animals category in the Indiegogo website. He saw my Indiegogo campaign and then contacted me and said that they wanted to promote my story. And so it started from there. And so as the news agency spread the word, and in other ways, I'm sure, besides that news agency, I had contacted pretty reputable blogs also with a pretty far reach. And so I think there was all the combination. And so ABC picked it up, Der Spiegel in Germany picked it up, and Huffington Post, I believe, is the last major print story that was just put up, I think, about a week and a half ago. Yes, and then it just sort of dominoed from there. From the beginning, and ABC was huge in getting a lot of traffic in. So I think part of it is luck, but also what the work that you do leading up to it. You never know. You never know.
Mm-hmm. So that's a great segue to Randy. And so Randy, why don't you introduce yourself? And then share just a little bit about what got you into crowdfunding in the first place.
So I'm a freelance filmmaker. I work for commercials and corporate films and things like that. And I wanted to do a web series, and it was my first attempt. And this was several years ago, and web series were all the rage. But I wanted to. I did a pilot and sort of self-funded that, but I wanted to go beyond that and actually try to get enough money to continue shooting. And so crowdfunding was a new thing, and so thought that so I worked with you. I found you as a marketing person, and we strategized and we went through the whole process. And I think we created a pretty entertaining and fun video. But ultimately, I was not successful in terms of meeting the funding goal. And we were Kickstarter at the time. And so Kickstarter is sort of an all or none. So since we didn't meet our goal, I didn't make any money. But I did learn a tremendous amount about the process. And I think part of the biggest mistake was I was almost asking for too many things. It wasn't a crystal clear one topic type of thing. We sort of muddied the waters. And I think the other thing that I learned was, we set off and did that, and we got good support from family and friends. And I don't recall how much I was asking for. But one of the things I learned was that, if you ask for a lot of money, it's very important that you have a community that already knows about you and believes in what you are doing, so that you can spread beyond your current family and friends. Your family and friends can only take you so far unless you have very, very wealthy family and friends. So so it's really about building. I think what I learned was it helps, and something that Kristin did was is build your community and let people know about what you're going to do well in advance of doing it, so that then you can reach a larger audience.
Yeah, that's one of the things that this particular webcast is about, is planning your campaign, because we learned that lesson. So it's because of that project that we're here today, and Money for Something was created, because we had learned from our mistakes. And absolutely critical is the planning process, which really is something that you do in filmmaking.
Yeah, that you would have thought I would have planned it better. But yeah, it is important to plan. And I think that one of the things, by going through that process, when I helped Kristin with her two projects, even though the videos are fairly simple and not what I call extremely sophisticated videos by any means, it was important that you really scripted it. And when we spent a lot of time on both of them, on scripting it and editing it down on paper before we ever started the process of putting the video together. One of the things that we did was it was built around an audio story first. And so that helped Kristin, because Kristin doesn't particularly like to be on camera. And so as a filmmaker, I would have loved to have filmed her with video, but I had to honor her not really enjoying that process. And I felt like it's better for her not to be nervous on camera. And so she was very comfortable in recording the audio. And one of the advantages of that was that we were able to do many, many takes and break it down into little bite-sized chunks and just continue to do it until we got a good performance, and then edited the audio together to create a whole, and then use that as the basis for then adding the photographs too.
And also, I think that if I can interject this, that I had a various number of photographs that showed me working with animals, either photographing them or just as a zookeeper. And so it wasn't like I was invisible to the public. They could get in, and it was part of my story and my narrative, so they could see me doing the work.
Yep.
Awesome. So let's talk about planning the video, because again, this webcast is about planning. And one of the things that I learned from you is the importance of all of that pre-shoot work that we did. So writing out the script, editing it down, storyboarding. Can you share a little bit about the process of all of that? Like what? So there's that piece. And then the other piece is what's important to say on these 2-minute videos?
Well, I'll start with that. I think the important things for most videos is that you really, as you pointed out, this is something I learned from you, is that people, as much as they invest in a project or an idea or a product, they're investing in a sense, but they're not really getting money back. There's the rewards and stuff. And so they have to really believe they want to know something about you, your personality, what you do, what you're doing. And really the more important even than that is the why, is communicating why you're doing what you're doing, why you're passionate. So I think it's important to let your passion show through, and your enthusiasm and your expertise. I mean, it's always good if you can sort of demonstrate that, that you're an expert in what you're trying to do to get people to believe in you. But really it's the why you're doing it is very important. So I think that's the core of any video, is communicating that message. And then obviously communicating clearly what it is that you're doing and what you're trying to raise money for. And I think it's also helpful to let people know where the money is going to be spent, how you're spending that money, and why. Then as far as planning, obviously the cheapest thing to plan on is paper and just writing it out, writing out any narration that you're going to do, write out what you want to say. It could be helpful to sometimes maybe do it as an interview and have someone else that you trust and feel comfortable with being off camera asking you questions. Sometimes that's a good approach, so it can go a lot of different ways, but planning on paper is essential. You can do storyboards if you can draw. I'm not very good at drawing, actually, so storyboards like that aren't necessarily useful, but sometimes using still photographs to represent what will later be done on video. Sometimes that can be a helpful tool. And the other thing I would recommend is, if you're going to be on camera, and most of us aren't comfortable with doing that unless we have experience acting, is maybe even before you do your real video is to practice and actually to get comfortable with it, so that you don't put all the pressure on yourself on that one day I have to perform. So practice it in the mirror and all that, but then practice it on camera, because as soon as you put a camera up there, it has a tendency to create nerves. And so practicing on that ahead of time and then looking at it and then getting some other people to give you maybe some constructive criticism, will help you before you actually, do it.
Awesome. So do you have like a spreadsheet that you use? Now you have a very complex spreadsheet for your films, but is there something simple out there that people can access that you know of?
I'm afraid not that I know of. Unfortunately, I just sort of do it from experience. So I don't know that I could really explain my process. I wish I could. And I don't I don't know of any specific tools out there, so I'm afraid I can't recommend something. But I'm sure there is something out there. I'm sure there is. And I think that if you're new at this and if you're doing the video yourself and you haven't done it a lot, then I would just stress, keep it simple. It's better to execute something simple and execute well than it is to try to create something extremely complex and not do a good job, not execute well.
Yeah. Okay, great.
And make sure that, and then, you know, I think it's good. I'm not going to say that everyone needs to go out and hire a professional because that costs money. But if you aren't experienced at doing it and you feel uncomfortable, then look around and find friends or ask around and get someone to help you. Maybe an aspiring, you know, film student, someone who's gone to film school and is studying. I mean, there's definitely people out there that have potentially more expertise than you do. And so I would encourage, you know, getting help. And you know, and in my case, I understand the editing process, but I'm not an editor. So on both projects, we brought in someone who was really good at editing, and we bartered with them. So we got professional editors, and we bartered and paid a little bit of cash in order to get someone. And a good editor is essential.
Awesome. So Randy, I want you to talk a little bit about your filmmaking mentor business that you're putting together, because I think there are some things that you're doing in creating that probably will help our viewers, you know, eventually.
Got it. I'm creating an online learning center with Adrian's marketing advice and help, called Real Pro Mentor. And basically, I've been a freelance filmmaker for a long time, and I've done a lot of teaching at universities and colleges and workshops. And now I'm trying to reach a larger audience to help young filmmakers. And I want it to be more international. And so the way to do that, obviously, is through a web presence. And so I'm going to be offering webinars, just like what you're doing. I'll be offering free webinars, and then later I'll be offering more extensive online courses and workshops through the internet, through my webpage. And then also I'll be doing, I'll use that to also promote live workshops that I'll be doing. And then also I'll be creating video tutorials that will that filmmakers can look at that might cover specific areas, like how to light XYZ or how to film this. So there'll be shorter tutorials. And so that's what I'm doing, is creating an online learning center for filmmakers.
That's really, it's exciting. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And currently you have columns or posts on some other filmmaking sites. What are those? I want to get those URLs up so people can see how you train and what you do and what you're offering.
Well, I've done guest blogs on a site called Stage 32. And Stage 32 is relatively new, but very successful. It's a social media site specifically for creatives, mostly visual arts. So photographers, filmmakers, people in theater, actors, writers. That's primarily who's attracted to that. And so they have forums. And so it's an educational website as well. They offer webinars and that type of thing. So I've done a guest blog for them about some experiences that were early in my career. So it was more of an entertaining. And then another site that I've done guest blogs for is called No Film School. And No Film School is a site, again, for that's specifically filmmakers. And I guess their premise is that in this day and age, they're saying you don't necessarily have to go to film school anymore. They're not saying that's a bad thing, but that there's a lot of information on the internet about that. And so they have writers that write articles and blog articles, but then they curate from all over. They find good articles and republish them. And so they have a very active membership that that comments, and so there's lots of discussions that go on about different filmmaking topics. And so I've done about, oh gosh, I've probably done 6 or more guest blogs for them.
Awesome. So I will look up those blogs, or maybe you can share with me the URLs, and then we'll just post it with the post-production video version of what we're doing right now. Excellent.
One point I would like to make, I think that guest blogging could be a good strategy for you to promote your crowdfunding campaign. So,
absolutely.
So if you have expertise in a certain area and you feel comfortable with writing, then that's a fantastic way. And my strategy for launching my thing is going to be doing even more guest blogging, because you want to go to where the traffic is. You want to draw traffic to your site, and so to bring traffic into your crowdfunding campaign, if you can get promoted or do guest blogging or anything on other sites that have a lot of traffic, that's a great way to leverage your message.
Awesome. So Kristin, we talked before we went on broadcast, and you wanted to make a point about social sharing.
Well, I think that one of the big things that I've learned, and partially from your work, and also the experience of the crowdfunding campaign, was it's social sharing. It's really important. It's all tied together. Crystallizing what your story is, really, sitting down, that this may be one of the most challenging parts of your crowdfunding experience, is really figuring out exactly what you want to do, and in communicating with others and connecting them with what your passion is. Sharing for me, because sometimes the campaign is going to be very slow. There isn't going to be much happening. In any given time, when you go on your crowdfunding page, and you're going to go, wait a minute, there's nothing happening. No, no one's giving me money for a long, don't panic. Number one, and this is for someone who did. Don't panic. Number two, know that social sharing is powerful also. So it really redirected my energies in some ways to really communicate with people that just the act of sharing your story with others that they know is an extremely powerful thing. And yes, you want to get all the money that you can possibly get. It would be nice, of course, but also just sharing globally with what happened with me was such an amazingly powerful thing, and you never know what's going to happen as a result. People who are going to become more aware of your project or your product or whatever, and share with others, and that creates a life of its own in a lot of ways, and that can manifest in surprising ways. So I think that the social sharing, it isn't all about the money. When I created my Facebook page for Soul Sessions, I shared resources. I, of course, reminded them about the Indiegogo campaign, but I'd say that most of my posts on my Soul Session Facebook page are about other things. They're about, I would share a feel-good video about an animal story. I would, put resources up that people could access. And I found that the response from people was a lot more when I shared feel-good stories and not about actual Soul Sessions is about animal photography near death.
Right.
And a lot of people, that's just a bummer kind of subject, death. And various ways of dealing with that. And so I found that just sharing and encouraging people to share through the campaign page is a powerful way to contribute also. And so it shifts it away quite so much from the panic and the tension of money, money, money. I need to get my donations all the time. It really helps with that.
So I'm going to show folks your page just to illustrate it, because you actually went in and told stories here, didn't you?
Oh, through my updates. Yes, updates is huge. I know that that's one of the things that you emphasize as well, Adrienne, is that getting on that page and really working through your campaign page. And a huge way to do that is by posting updates. And I, varied the amount of time between updates. I didn't necessarily want to do it every day because I think that we can get information overload. If we see the same kind of email coming in, update from Soul Sessions, that kind of thing, there can be a little bit of, oh, well, too much. So I tried to vary the times between updates. And also, again, these are people that have already contributed. They've already expressed their support to you. So I want to share resources. I want to share good stories. I think that a lot of people find my zookeeping stories interesting. If there's an interesting story behind a particular soul session that I've done, there's a picture of Jan there, and that was a wonderful soul session that I did with her, and just sharing little stories about that people can connect with, they can find identification with. And also the galleries, if you have lots of pictures, put them in your gallery. Is a wonderful way for people to look and see what it really is all about, that what you're doing. Whether it's photographs of you creating a physical product, putting together an item, or just having fun with what you do is really important also.
I wanted to clarify something too, and that is that one thing that Kristin learned was that when you ask people to share, that the tendency is if you do it on Facebook, then they're just going to, the easy thing for them is to just go ahead and share it on Facebook, and that's fine. But what is more helpful is if you use, and I think we found out that we had to really be clear and specifically ask people, if you want to help, please go to the Indiegogo page and share socially from there. In other words, use their Facebook or Twitter buttons there, because if you share from that page,
from the actual campaign page.
Yeah, that it helps your algorithm. In other words, that gets Indiegogo. If they see a lot of shares, then that contributes towards their wanting to promote your page. And if they promote your page, then that enables you to get more donations from strangers, people you don't even know.
So a huge part of the preparation before you even launch your campaign, which I think my next campaign I'll do more of, is really figuring out your language of how you're going to communicate when you send your blanket emails, when you send your communications, when you get your team together. That's a really important thing, is to find one or two other people who are really invested and really support what you do, and make sure that they're really astute with social media and an understanding of that. And so get your language together of how you're going to convey what you need others, or what you invite others to do, depending on the particular time in your campaign. Get all that ready so it's really, really, really clear, and all you have to do is just start sending them out.
Okay, that's beautiful. So, see, I'm not sure I heard you talk about the algorithms as part of the thinking behind sharing from the page itself. So we had talked about that a little bit. So,
well, as Randy mentioned, that one of the big things that I learned was really getting my language very, very clear. The algorithm is, with Indiegogo, and I'm pretty certain that Kickstarter has it too. You want your campaign to be on the front page of the Indiegogo site or the Kickstarter site. You want people because a lot of people surf. They just go in there over a good cup of coffee and they're looking at these different sites. So you want to make sure you're near the front page. And so to do that, it's all about algorithms, and algorithms is directly affected by the activity on your campaign page. By activity, it's people going into that campaign page and clicking on those Facebook share, tweet share, email share buttons, comment, once they donate, they can leave a comment. All that kind of activity affects the algorithm. And so when there's a lot of activity in there, then Indiegogo will feature your campaign prominently, more prominently. And so for a very, very long period of time, as a result of a lot of activity on my page, they have placed me on the front page, so that when you go in and let's say you hit the category animals, then most of the time my campaign would be on the first thumbnail that shows up. And by looking at what you've got up there, Adrian, I don't think that right now I'm on there on the front page. But I'd say like for 90% of my campaign, I was, which was really exciting. Well, I'm sorry.
And I think that you're not on this because just 10 minutes or 15 minutes ago or half an hour ago, you were on the front page. So what I think is happening is I spent so much time on your campaign that they may be showing us others. Because earlier today you were definitely on that first that first chunk.
Yeah. And so that's all about the algorithms, and so that's directly connected with preparing your communication with people so that they really, whenever you reach out to the community and make sure that they understand, and also saying, well, you don't really have to, if you don't want to donate right now, you can still get on the page and share by clicking on those. You have to be very specific, clicking on those the Facebook button, tweet button, all that is very powerful way to contribute.
There's another thing then, and again, we don't know exactly how the algorithm works and how they weigh it, but another factor is that I think is very important is that you want to get off to a quick start. So when you're preparing your friends and family that want to support you and you're getting ready to launch, is to encourage them to contribute early. Don't wait. Don't wait for the end. Like, oh, I'll have my mom do the last one to put me over the hump. Yeah, you might ask her to have to do it again, but you want to get your campaign going so that it's on track. Because I think that Kickstarter and Indiegogo, they look and see how you're doing. Are you on schedule, so to speak, to meet your goal? And if you are doing well, then they may feature you early. Whereas if your campaign is stalling at the beginning, then that's going to hurt the algorithm.
Yeah, just think of the thousands and thousands of campaigns that go through those, those sites, and I think that it just simply gets their attention. If you have a flurry at the beginning for the first week, it gets their attention, and that's when, and once you have that foundation built, then it's fairly easy to retain their attention, as long as you really work with the idea of the algorithm is your little red phone line to Indiegogo or Kickstarter staff. Yeah, it really is, and they'll help you get on the front page
because they want to promote campaigns that they think have a chance of succeeding. They don't want to waste their real estate on someone that they go, well, it doesn't look like they're going to make their goal, because they make more money if you make your goal.
And it also, just briefly, if I have time, Adrian, just for one more brief comment about that. It's really, I had some technical issues at the beginning, and a lot of it with my site, and it was not Indiegogo's fault. It was partly my ignorance, because I am not a techno person whatsoever. Photoshop is the extent of my expertise. Everything else is a challenge. But I had a lot of communication with the customer service through Indiegogo, and I have to say that that's another. If you ever have technical issues and ever have to contact customer service at Indiegogo or Kickstarter, just really, they want to help you. Be really, really nice about it, and just really create a relationship, with these people. If it ends up that you have to contact them, because that's all part of it as well. I don't know whether in reality it happens that way for them, but I think that it doesn't hurt to have, really positive energy, even though at the time it could be very stressful for you, depending on what the problem is.
Yes.
But really important to think of it in those terms, that this is an entity that wants to help you. So let's get connected, and they'll get interested.
I think that's an excellent point, and it's certainly something that in the planning phases and pre-launch, we do some we teach pre-launch marketing in our courses, and that's part of it, is relationship building, because we really rely on relationship marketing as a key component of success in campaigning, which you have done in spades. I want to thank you both for joining me this morning. We have just 5 minutes left to our broadcast, and I've got a few things I want to share with folks. And I'm so privileged to know both of you. We have worked together for years. And I just thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank
All right.
you.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So quickly, we only have 5 minutes left. So what I want to show you are some of the tools that we use in our classes that help you in your planning, which is one of the most important phases. So this particular document is a checklist. It's just literally a checklist of what you need to do to plan. And I created this with one of my business partners, Allison Sigmund from 3630. And we're going to continue to evolve this, but this takes you step by step. I mean, literally everything you need to do to create your campaign before you launch. And this is, it looks like it's an exhaustive list, but I promise you we're going to be adding more. But it takes you through step by step. And I think that's important. The more help we can offer folks, the better off we really are overall. Because our interest over here at Money for Something is that people who are passionate about what they do, who are just massively committed to having what they do make a difference in the world, we want you to succeed. So that's what we're interested in. Okay, this little package here, this is our $5 kick-ass crowdfunding kit. And you get all of the tools that we have developed so far for planning your campaign. And we start with a general presentation and overview of crowdfunding. This is the workbook that was developed out of the experience that we started with Randy. And as we went in and we started to research successful campaigns and unsuccessful campaigns, that's where this workbook evolved from, was that. And then this crowdfunding process is that checklist we just looked at. I want to look at this one here. This is our 3-month strategy and planning sheet. This is an interactive PDF. And what you're able to do with this is there's like the 20,000 foot view of planning. This is a little lower, maybe the 10,000 foot view of planning. And these columns can represent months. And then on these sides here, this can represent the different activities that you need to do, either from a planning perspective or from a marketing perspective. So there's different ways that you market. There's Facebook, you've got your LinkedIn, you have your email campaigns, you have your phone calls. So each of these rows could represent a type of marketing that you're committed to doing in your campaign. And then you could even have these columns be pre-launch campaigning, launch campaigning, and then post-campaigning. So again, in our courses and in any of our materials, we talk about at least a 90-day process where you're spending 30 days before you launch creating those relationships that Randy and Kristin were talking about, getting acquainted with bloggers and letting them know what's coming up that relates to their readers and what those readers are interested in, getting in touch with media and creating those relationships, writing your copy, understanding the SEO, all of that stuff is pre-launch marketing. that needs to be done and in place, and even creating content ahead of time so that during the campaign, what you're doing is you're responding to people and their questions. You're sharing those beautiful stories like Kristin did, the different stories around her clients. And this is just a very, very simple tool to help you do that. And then we have more complex tools, our expense spreadsheet, the marketing calendar, and editorial calendar. But all of this we are releasing. Well, we started with Fiverr.com. So I'll show you that real quick. And we're almost out of time. So this is the thing that started us thinking about what can we give people for $5? It's so simple. So this is the pitch on Fiverr. And when you purchase the kit through Fiverr, you also get a free membership in our brand new private Money for Something membership program. And that's where we expose you early on to any new materials that we're creating, new tools that we're developing, all of that stuff. So you become part of the process of helping us create tools that'll actually positively impact other campaigners as well as yourself. Let's see, I don't want to go here. We have a crowdfunding intensive coming up at the end of this month. This is our 4-week, 5-session course that helps you structure a powerful, powerful campaign. So this is what you want to do in the 30 days prior to the 90 days. You get into this course, take these 4 weeks, dedicate your time and resources to this, and we guarantee if this is not of value to you, you get your money back. You've got my personal guarantee on that. But it's coming up soon at the end of the month, and I would suggest that you participate. If you go onto LinkedIn, you'll see some testimonials from folks who graduated from the last intensive and what their experience was like. We have a new workshop coming up called Launch that will debut in July, and that's for graduates of the intensive. It's a 12 to 14 week, 3-month program that takes you from the end of your strategy and planning that happens in the intensive to actually launching your website. So lots of exciting things are coming up. And then of course, you can always download the workbook for free, and the 3-month planner that I shared with you also for free. So that's pretty much it for the day. I'll post links to all this stuff on the video, and look for an edited version sometime later this evening, but you can still watch this video now. So we're 2 minutes over. Thank you so much for attending. And again, Randy and Kristin, you guys are just wonderful. Thank you so much. And we're off. Bye. Bye.